Yes, we will start at 7 p.m. And thank you to Tracy for making sure, like, all the back and forth, just to make sure we were able to meet too. So I appreciate that, because by the time I joined the chat, it was like already done. Our first item of business is to approve last month's minutes.
I have a couple of little corrections that I would make it clearer to me, because when I first read it, I was confused. So it's under number 6, reports, and then, so I think it was John was reporting, and the first little subgroup of 1, 2, and 3 is about outreach, and then it starts over with 1, 2, 3, and 4, which all seems to be about the friends. So I thought it would be more helpful if there was like a next level up that said outreach, and then one that said friends, because number 2 says something about the current board, but it doesn't say the Friends Board, and I was confused if they were talking about our board or the Friends Board.
Okay, so this is 6.
6, and then the second item, little 2. The first,
So B2.
Yeah, I don't have actually the thing.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, B probably should say the friends of the library, and then
They're just consecutive, and
yeah,
but the numbering starts over again.
yeah. See, this goes 1, 2, 3, and
Oh, okay. I think that was probably a typo. Are you looking at it, Tracy?
Yes, I was trying to find it in 6.
6A. So go 1, 2, 3, and then it starts over at 1.
Yeah.
That's the numbering. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, those are all items about the friend of the library.
About the friends, yeah.
Yeah.
But it would be
so
nice
it
if we're talking about boards, that we specify Friends Board to differentiate it from this board. Because item 4 says, all board members are required to volunteer, and I almost went, what? And it should say Friends Board members.
I think that's great to point out, especially any members of the public who might want to go through these notes to make it as clear as possible.
Yeah.
So I think the numbering is just a quick fix, and then
just each
all
time
of those numerical items are under John's report as library director.
Yeah.
So,
but there has to be, if there's 1, 2, and 3, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4, there has to be something in between.
Yeah, I think with the report from Jane, we can be about friends of the library.
All that kind of stuff.
Maybe that needs
I don't remember.
Maybe that needs
Yeah,
to
that's
be.
maybe it's missing a heading. Is that
Yes,
what you're saying?
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then C, B because
You're right.
C and
Yeah.
It isn't a glitch in the numbering. It's
A heading is missing.
we're missing B, Friends Liaison,
Yeah.
and then City Council Liaison will be re-lettered as C.
Yeah.
Library Profession is D.
Yeah.
That's it.
See,
And then I think
did
with
read the
those
minutes.
headings, yeah. But you know when you read your own writing sometimes?
Yeah, you
it's
just
like,
skip right over it. Yeah.
You don't
Well, of course
catch
we
it.
know what
You're like,
that
oh
is.
yeah, I remember that. That's accurate.
Yeah.
But for someone who wasn't part of the
Yeah.
meeting, that would be confusing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Anything? So I was ready to approve the content, but glossed over the format. So with that, does anyone?
So now do we approve with correction?
Yes.
Yes, they will be amended, and then we'll just sign them at next month's next month's meeting.
But do we still have to move to approve?
Yes, as amended, I think.
Okay. So I move to approve last month's minutes as amended. Just now. So thank you. Check. Are there any members of the public who wish to be heard? I wonder if 1 month coming up, we might invite the teen library advisory board to come and be heard. What do you think?
Sure.
Just playing with that. I don't know if they would accept, but they meet a week or two before we do. And so I could talk to the librarian who advises that group and see. Because we never have any business. Be careful what we wish. New business. Nicola's not here for an icebreaker. And so my on-the-fly icebreaker question, and you are always, always welcome to pass, is who is your favorite librarian from like fiction or movies or media? Your favorite librarian character?
The only one I know is Marion from Music
Doesn't have to be a public librarian.
Stuffed everybody.
It's a wonderful life,
Oh.
you know. She ended up being a librarian and not marrying his wife. What's his
In
name?
his dream,
In
yeah.
his dream.
Correct.
That's the only one I could think of.
Donna Reed.
Oh, and there's another movie about a girl that's like, somebody told me about this movie, but I didn't see it. But it's about a girl who's like a party girl, and she realizes that she needs to shape up, and she's mentored, I guess, by a librarian.
It's called Party Girl.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Parker Posey.
It should be required. Yes, and she's
Required
Parker
to-
Posey is like the ultimate like independent
That's
filmmaker. She's I was actually thinking of that movie. Her aunt plays the librarian in the movie, but anyway, the whole thing centers around the New York Public Library.
Right.
It's not an Academy Award winner, but I
But
feel
it's
like
entertaining.
anyone has any library appreciation at all, especially those of us who have worked in it or know a lot, you should watch it.
Right.
Because libraries are sexy and cool.
I know. And I guess I just noticed those things.
It's
Like,
just a ridiculous movie. It's so good. I own it.
anytime-
Just so good. We could actually,
Of course you do.
maybe in a future board meeting, that'll be all we do.
all right. Well,
Maybe not either.
the one that's coming to me, I have others, but I can't think of like the names right now. But the one that comes to mind first is Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That series, and he was a school librarian, but he helped, Buffy and her friends defeat vampires and zombies and that sort of thing. So, yeah, and I hear there is a series called The Librarians that aired on TNT maybe 10
I
years
watched
ago.
it, yeah.
You
I watched a few
did?
episodes. Yeah, it wasn't really.
Wasn't really good? No,
It was a
you're more like-
superhero kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was very disappointing.
The idea of guarding magical, supernatural knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, I did try to do that one.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't be.
How come you were actually?
I can't remember his name, but I grew up watching the Page Master. I can't remember his name. This librarian in that, it just was very inspirational to me as a kid, and now I'm my daughter's watching that movie, and it just, I don't know, just really stuck with me, I guess, because he really opened that his mind up to facing his fears, especially. That was kind of the whole theme of the movie, but I always really enjoyed that movie.
I don't think I've heard of that.
Macaulay Culkin is the main actor. Macaulay Culkin.
Oh. Was he older than he was in Home Alone?
He's about the same age. He
Oh,
might be a
okay.
little bit older, but yeah, about the same era.
There's a series of books too, fantasy books, and it's magical. And the library is the kind of center that holds everything together and keeps the dragon people from warring with the something else people. And one of the women in it is a librarian, and she goes to Victorian London.
It's a great novel. I guess it's dystopian, but the Library of Matt Char came out in the last 10 years. That one was excellent, but also not a traditional library.
Yeah.
Cool.
Susie looks, you're stumped. I can see it.
I am stumped. So I started going back to like when I was a kid, and we had 3 channels.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a librarian, Shirley Jones, the Music Man? Wasn't she a librarian?
Yeah.
Marion
the librarian.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second, I was like trying to go back. I cannot think of anything.
Something will come to you, I bet.
I know it
In
will.
3
I'll have
days.
to email you at a later time. But that was the one that I'm like, wait, wasn't she a librarian in the Music Man?
Yeah, there's a whole song about her. That
Yeah.
The guy sings Mary and the
Yeah, it's real
librarian.
flattering.
Yeah. I'll have to
It's a
keep
good- it's a
thinking
good
about
musical.
it.
Yeah.
So mine, okay. It's not really the library character, but it's one of the most famous Seinfeld episodes where the detective is collecting the overdue fines.
Yeah, the library police.
Yeah, I think it's more than one episode too. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh my god. No.
Everybody should go home and watch that one.
He-
It's very good.
It's very Seinfeld. It's over the top. He's trying to collect these fines. He's going to people's homes.
I got an ominous letter from this library that was like, it used the first person, like, I've tried contacting you,
Oh yeah.
I'm going to, whatever, send this to collections or whatever.
Oh.
But then
well, that's-
But then it's unsigned, so I'm like, who is this? It wasn't your style.
it's if it was that type of email,
Yeah.
which means you really were holding on to it for quite some time.
Yeah.
That's there is a collection agency.
It's outsourced, yeah, it wasn't
And
from.
it's not a real collection agency. Like they can't actually do anything to anybody. But it makes it. I don't like it because I don't like how it makes people feel. When people who
Yeah.
don't know are like, oh my god, like they're after me, and it's just like we just want our stuff back. But it creates a. But the reality is, for what we pay for that service and the materials we get back, because of when we send those letters, they actually send you reports on the value of what was actually returned after that, and it's far outweighs what we pay for that.
They were
So
totally
I can't justify getting rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like the idea of it.
Suggest they add like a fictitious name and title at the bottom.
I think we can customize those, but anyway, maybe that's a different
The
discussion.
library police is how it should be signed.
Oh my god.
Find out the name of the detective in the episode, and that's who should sign
Yeah, I would probably get sued for copyright infringement or something.
Well, we can come with a closer.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Make
I
it
think they
more centric.
can. We had a conversation about this with my circ manager a while ago. Anyway, maybe that's a different discussion. I'm glad you brought it up in the sense that I need to revisit that with her.
But I
Because we were
outed
talking
myself.
about what's in the actual letters that goes out. Because I think it's just a template that's used unless
Yeah.
we tell them what to put.
We should talk, because there were many points in the letter that suggested that I had already received many letters, and I hadn't.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a final notice, like on paper. It was
Sounds
only
like,
the
it
first
sounds like we
thing.
have malicious practices. I mean, it's probably trying to reference like that you probably and you should have received like overdue notices, but that would have been via email
Yes,
or
correct.
text.
Correct. No, this
Not
specifically
actual letters.
said mail.
Well, and once it gets, if something gets late enough, before you get the letter you got, you would get a paper
Yeah.
bill.
Oh.
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, you should, yeah.
And that's not from the collection agency. And then if
Right.
you ignore that,
Right.
then you're one of those that's saying, I never got that. We hear that all the time.
I know. But I feel like I have gotten those in the past, and that was enough.
Yeah.
I want to know what this book is that you're not telling me.
It's the book on like mortuary practices in the United States.
It sounds like there were probably holds on it.
It's not that one, but it's the second memoir from Caitlin Doherty, where she goes around and interviews people.
Well, I want to read it.
It's really good. Yeah, but it's not like I hung on to it because it's so good. I hung on to it because I can't stay awake long enough to read it
Yeah.
in the day.
Just not getting to
Well, this meeting's not about me.
it. But I
Just
do
the ice
like,
cream.
I do like that we got rid of the fines,
Uh-huh.
nickel and diming people. And then, just if you keep it too long, then we bill you for the book, and then people will wake up
Right.
and say, oh, that's how much that book is worth.
Right.
I think I'll return it rather than pay $50,
Right.
So,
Correct. Yeah.
but maybe we could have the right deal.
Just accurate.
Oh, it's like-
Moving on.
Please.
Now that we've broken my ice.
We have some interesting, exciting developments around pickup lockers.
Yeah. Susie, I'm going to basically redo the presentation you got at council, so you've seen this, obviously, you were there. I just thought I would let you know what I'm about to do, because I haven't really had a chance to do this with this board. So, that being said.
Like if you'd like to get a snack or something.
Yeah, or I don't know, just maybe. So, but I will share this with you. So, just a little background, because I can't remember, which is often the case with me when we get here, if I've brought this up before or not. But the library, I got interested in these whole pickup lockers, and if you're familiar with Amazon pickup lockers or anything that pretty much any business has now, so libraries have gotten into this, and it's proven to be extremely valuable for patrons. It's a real convenience, and I don't remember when, but Susie and I got into it might have been one of these meetings, but Susie and I had a discussion, or it may have been after the fact.
I think it was after the meeting.
And so basically what that led to is her bringing it forward to council with the fact that they have contingency funds that they can spend at basically their discretion, and they vote on it. So I went to council 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was almost right after this board meeting, to give them a little more information. They had some, but they had a meeting where they didn't vote. The decide was to table it until they could get more information. So I came up, and I thought I would just kind of show you what I talked about with them. Maybe.
Yeah, so I had asked to put it on a future agenda item.
That's right.
So yeah, I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. It was like, when I asked for it, it was like, okay, give us the money now. But it was like, oh yeah, I gotta put it on agenda item, then we discuss and go over all this.
So
I got a little too ahead of myself.
No. I mean, it's all good, right? So, basically, I'm gonna figure that out. There we go. So, what I presented, and you can kind of see what they look like. It very much looks like that. This is a customized locker, which we'd be able to do. Part of what you get is the ability to put a wrap on it, so you can have it branded and do whatever you want. As you suspect, it gives you a location, you can compared to opening a whole branch with staff, which would really be the ideal, but at least this is a step in between where you can provide a service to people that are not around here, but it can have holds delivered somewhere more convenient. So, and it's really convenient because depending where you put them, and the one I'm looking at, and most of them are designed to be indoor or outdoor, so you can provide 24/7 access. So that's the idea here. Looks like something like that, and it, you know, from the end user side of things, it's as simple as, you know, if you use our catalog now and you place holds online, and you know it's going to be picked up here because it's the only place you can pick it up. In this scenario, you would place a hold and you could choose here or the locker. And then on the staff side of that is we would know that, and we would deliver holds to the locker. And it's a pretty sophisticated system. It integrates with our library management system. Whoever goes out there just scans an admin card, and you scan, I think either the barcodes or the books, I can't remember. But anyway, there's 1 or 2 steps. It opens a door or 2, depending on how much space it knows it needs. And you put it in there, and then when the patron comes up, you just scan your library card, and it opens the relevant door. So if you've ever used that system, pretty similar. The only difference, like with Amazon, is you have a QR code that opens it. In this case, it's just your library card. So, yeah, so it would be for Longmont library card holders users only, and I say that because obviously anyone can get a card. Anyone can use our materials without a Longmont library card, but they cannot select the locker as a pickup location. It's pretty low overhead for staff, at least initially. Most libraries I talk to that have something like this make a visit to the lockers once a day. They load what needs to be loaded, and then anybody that didn't pick up their holds, the system will tell you it's expired. We hold things for a week, and so we would take them back here, check them in, and then get them going wherever they're supposed to go next, which could be a next patron or back on the shelf.
What about, could the person return the book to the locker?
Not to the locker itself, but in the plan I have for this, I would get a proper outdoor book drop like we have on these. Yeah, and I would just do that out of some funds I have. I didn't propose that here, but I think it's necessary. Otherwise, what will happen is people will just leave books around the locker.
Yeah.
So you kind of need to plan ahead for that. There are some lockers that accept returns also. Like you don't have to have a book return, but the capacity of them is so small that it's better to just have a real return like we have out here.
So the same person that goes and puts the books in can then
exactly,
empty the
and then you empty the return. Yeah, bring it back. So
makes sense.
The model I'm looking at, so we have an automated materials handling system in the back staff area, that handles returns, and it's very efficient. And it's the same company makes these lockers and many other products. There's other vendors for it, but this was the one I looked up because their technology is much more sophisticated. It has less staff impact on the back end. Some of these lockers on the lower end, so to speak, require a lot of staff involvement. Like here, you have to scan things like 2, 3, 4, 5 times before it's ready for the patron. So these are just designed pretty well. Our automated handler is a really good system. They come at around $30,000, but that includes installation, and then you saw that graphical wrap. That's one of their lockers. That picture was one of their lockers. And maintenance, I'm really not trying to think. Location, what we identified as an initial location to try this out is out of Centennial Pool. It's in a location of town that needs any library service. It's highly populated, the pool itself plus the 2 schools that are right by there if you know that part of town. There's space outside, plenty of space outside for this, including the book drop. And even though this would be a 24/7 book drop, of course the pool's open and there's staff there for the day, so there's actually people there that are around. It's high traffic, I think, which is good too, so I think there's less possibility for anything that could happen to the issue. The other benefit of doing something like this initially on a city property is it's our own property, so I don't have to work into any agreements with an outside company. But at the end of the day, if you did more of these, ideal locations might be like retail centers, a shopping center next to a grocery store, or in the grocery store. But it gets a little bit different, right, to start negotiating agreements or contracts with stuff like that. So that might be down the road, but initially, this was a location. There's other city properties that would work well too, including our own rec center down south. Neither are too far from here, but the advantage of the pool would be 24/7 access, high traffic. The advantage of the rec center, which would probably be inside, I would think, although I don't know, but at least their hours are later than the library, so you could pick up a hold there where they're open until 10 on a weeknight. We're only open until 8. So right now, Centennial is probably where this is going to go. So, transit center. Oh, I was listed here shopping. So there's a transit center would be a great idea. Like in the future, when that whole First and Main transit center is done, that would be a great place to have something like this.
What's happening on 17th and Homer?
And that's the other thing. So
Yeah, I was really thinking the west.
Well, there is going to be one there. So basically, what happened in the council meeting where I presented this is council unanimously approved funding one of these, and under the idea from this presentation of Centennial Pool. Our city manager interjected in the meeting, and the city manager's office has their own contingency funds and wants to fund one of these for 17th and Homer in the new housing development.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and that'll be, that's going to be later in the year, I think. It could even spoil next year, but so we'll be getting 2 of these. So, yeah, be careful what you ask for. But that, it'll be staggered a little bit. And honestly, I haven't talked to the city manager or anybody about this, but when it comes to the 17th and Homer location, because the other product that I think would be good, which is what's on your screen here, are the book vending cabinets by the same company. This is actually a browsable collection. So not a whole pickup, but just a collection of, and it holds around 200 to 300 items. Where someone can come and it's as simple as scanning your card, the door unlocks, you take what you want, and whatever you take, it checks it out to you. I kind of wonder in a location like 17th and Homer, ideally both would be there, but this I could see with housing to have some library materials ready. It's almost like having our what we call the lucky day out here, right? It's anything that there can be checked out. We could stock it with materials, at least initially, that we think are relevant for the community that's there, and kind of change it up. But I don't know. That's very preliminary for me to say. It's the same price. I think it's a fantastic idea. And I mentioned this to council because I just wanted to know where my mind at as far as remote services. Hold is one thing, but materials, a browsable collection somewhere is another. Again, with very low to little staff impact. And at least for now, that's what we need. Growth is critical for this library, and ultimately with locations and staff with programming, just like we have here. But intermediate steps to maybe get that and move in that direction. These are great things to do that. So,
can I ask a question about that? The collection that resides in these cabinets, I'm assuming that they can rotate over time, but can you also have it be sort of a permanent, dedicated collection that is only available at that location?
That's a good question. I mean, we can designate what's there. Wait, are you asking like maybe I understood?
Let me put it another way. So I personally haven't encountered one of these in the wild. So my first assumption would be, these are items from the library's overall collection, and they are selected for this location, and they might be returned here, they might be returned to the main branch.
Right.
They can change over time, they cannot, but it's like taking things that maybe already exist and saying we're going to keep them here for people to browse. The second thought is like, oh, well, what if it's 200 books that were selected and purchased specifically for this location? It's essentially a micro branch, and the items are always here when they're not checked out. They're returned here and they stay here.
That could work that way.
And maybe they're extra copies of things that are popular.
Right.
But
because
yeah.
the cabinet would be essentially treated like a branch in that sense. So we would know on our end of things where it was shelved, so to speak. So it would be like a shelving location.
Exactly.
So it would.
Yeah.
And people could return stuff here too. That's the other thing is they're finished, they unlock the cabinet, they put it back in, and it checks it back in. Or they could return it here, or a locker, and then staff would know it goes back in the cabinet.
Yeah.
But what I think over time, what you do is we would have to have some method of reporting to see, like, okay, there's these items are never checking out. We need to freshen this up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pull it back out, change them to being shelved here, and bring a new set. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to make it.
I mean, with only 200 titles, people who come fairly often are going to get sick of what's there. There's nothing new.
Correct. Depending on usage,
Yeah.
that could inform a lot of visits to keep it stocked.
Yeah. It's almost like a permanent bookmobile. Because they have a limited collection, but they swap it out.
So I think it's, this is a great idea, and we'll see if that ends up happening. Right now, I just wanted to share some of the other things that are out there, but the pickup locker is essentially what we'll be moving forward with, at least initially.
Are bookmobiles totally passe? I mean,
No,
is that
not
even
at
a
all.
consideration?
No.
I guess in rural areas they're not.
They're not passe. They still exist. I think they've, they've certainly developed to more than just a truck or a bus with a bunch of books. I mean, before I came here, in the system I worked in Southern California, we had what we called literacy resource vans. And it was a hodgepodge. There was a small collection there, but and the goal of that was a different service. So it kind of depends what you're trying to deliver.
Yeah.
In that case, it was literacy for children and adults. So the collections on there were literacy focused. There was a lot of technology. There was a lot of digital literacy type of things. It just really varied. But as far as being that kind of bookmobile idea where we traveled around into locations that needed that library service, that was just the goal there.
Yeah.
But I think Denver still has traditional bookmobiles, and I'm pretty sure others do.
And somebody's got
And they add technology. I mean, there's
Oh,
more
yeah.
on there.
No, it's not just books.
Ours had also an outside screen, so and we had fold-up chairs, and you could set up and have a whole class.
Wow.
It was pretty
I
cool.
remember a news segment on some system, not in Colorado, that had like a tour bus that they outfitted for story times, and they would go to neighborhoods where there were lots of children who maybe didn't make it to the libraries often, and there was space inside. You could have like a full-size, 15, 20 child story time. That's
Right. So that's where we're at. We have so my next steps, and I've reached out to the vendor that I was researching this into to get some more detailed information, and I need to talk to city purchasing. We get into things like this. There's certainly processes for how we do this. Even though I have a selected vendor, I may have to get other quotes.
Yeah.
It depends. Theirs are quite a bit different, but I have some follow up to do there first. And there's a lot, before at the end of the day. But in dealing with the fact that we need, we need internet connection. That's how it connects to the library system and does all that. Getting installed at the location. all that kind of stuff. So, but it's pretty exciting. And I just very appreciative that happened, and that Susie brought that forward and was in alignment with myself and this library on a service like that, and saw the value of it. And I was even more pleasantly surprised, I should say, that our city manager, I did not expect at all. And in the early days of that development, that housing development, there was talk about having a branch there.
Sure.
And I think with the things they wanted in that development that are on like kind of the retail part, it just started. I think it was a budgetary issue. I think as much as I could tell. So this is sort of like a nice. Okay, well we can't do that, but we can do this locker thing here. You still have something that shows that the library is there.
What I'm excited about the most is that this hopefully, it's a seed, right? It's taking a chance and testing the waters, and if these lockers are used and they're appreciated and we see positive impact in that part of the city, then it's, hopefully leads to the next thing and the next thing. And it's kind of like doing market research and incrementally reaching goals at the same time. Very cool. And the timeline is at least the first one sometime in 2025?
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to, like I said, there's a number of things to do. But once you kind of get the approval from the purchase and I get the vendor on it, they're delivered and installed pretty quickly.
But the contingency funds aren't like tied to this fiscal year.
They are. I mean, I have the money from that vote. I don't know if it's tied in that sense, though, to answer that, because even in our normal budgeting, for things and projects like this where, you might run into some unforeseeable delay, you can request carryovers. In this case, with something like this, this is going to, at the end of the day, require a purchase order from the vendor, which already will encumber the funds. And those, once you encumber them, even if it spills into next year, that automatically carries over because it's encumbered.
Here it does. With the city it does. In the county, those purchase orders can get canceled.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
You answered my question.
Yeah, so to answer it, it's like, I mean, the funds were actually already transferred over to me now. They're there. But, I hope it doesn't spill next year, but you don't know what you could run into. There could be something with installation or internet connectivity or integration with the library system. There's just a lot of things that have to happen. That being said, these are widely popular. This company has installed these in Colorado. In Arapahoe Library District has them all over the place. They use the same vendor and same product, so it's not like an unknown thing. Yeah. And we're fortunate to have our own internet called Nextlight. So
I did notice it said that 30,000 covers the original thing and a wrap and a year of maintenance. So after that, how much is the maintenance?
It's about 2,000 or 2,500. I can't remember. That is something I will have to request in the budgeting year.
Yeah.
But usually with that kind of thing, when you have maintenance agreements, it's it kind of has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
no,
and I think that's known anyway.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, and I get back in touch with the vendor. Assuming I can go with them and then share the news with her that we're not only going to get one but two, or maybe one and one vending, it could be we get some discounts on maintenance. That would be the other advantage of staying with this vendor, besides the fact that they're really good at work with.
I just love the idea of getting us out there,
Well, like planting the seed, like Jamie was saying, I think it's exposure.
Yeah.
That is no secret that that's a goal of mine. So if people will see the library somewhere, I think that's a good thing.
Well, and then if you get people starting to use this and
Yeah.
they say, oh, well, it'd be really nice if you had more stuff here, you know,
Right.
then maybe you can get a little storefront
Yeah,
and have a bigger collection
right,
and
exactly.
send the holes there.
That's
you know,
the hope.
without having to build a
It's
whole
nice when
branch.
the residents
Yeah.
demand that directly,
Yeah,
right? If you want an unsolicited PR idea, once the details are nailed down, you could consider having part of the wrap be a design contest. Like there's a way of like, you put the message out, this is happening, this is wonderful, and we are soliciting from the community graphic designs to put on the front of the locker.
Yeah,
like
right.
that first image had the illustration
Yeah, it was
of the
pretty
head,
cool, right? Yeah.
But then you still had plenty of room for the library branding and information, URL and all of that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, ooh. And then you engage people that way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's my pickup locker business item.
Awesome.
Pending any other questions or comments?
I'm gonna talk about it out in the.
There was an article in the paper, the Times call. Or
yes,
the
yes, I saw it.
Because I was reading this paper and I was reading one of the voters, and she'd just seen it, and she didn't understand it, so I explained it to her. So it's out there somewhere.
Well, there was, after the first time that Susie brought it to council, a Times call person, I think he heard about that and then reached out to me and got some more information, and then he published an article on this potential, and that's probably,
Yeah,
and it may have made it
that's
into
what I
the
saw
paper too, but I know it was on, in fact, it was on the front page. It was, I didn't expect the timing of that. I thought, he was asking questions thinking like after council's actual vote, he might publish an article. But that's okay. And the only reason I'm chuckling a little bit is there was a lot of staff here that were probably seeing that like, wait, what? I'm like, hi, sorry, yeah, we might be getting these more later. Because I just felt like it kind of got ahead of me. Anyway, it's all
It's a
good.
good,
It's a
great.
good problem to have.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
The other item that is under new business is kind of something I'm trying out. The Colorado legislative updates. I have seen little things here and there, and then I talked to John about some specific legislation, and just wanted to have a space on the agenda where any of us could bring things that we were reading or hearing out in the community as a way of kind of staying alert and as needed to discuss, well, how might our library be affected? Yeah, that's the main thing. Is this something that we could realistically imagine affecting the Longmont Library? And so Tracy shared a couple of links to articles, or there was one bill itself about various things. I don't know if everyone had time to glance at those, but the one in Colorado, the House Bill 1158, I think, about the digital collections. The one that was the one that felt like maybe the most immediately relevant. And when I brought it up to John, like, oh, but it's really focused on schools, I learned so much about why it is worth paying attention to, particularly the language, because the summaries that I've read out there seem like completely innocuous. Like, why would anybody oppose this? And yet our state library association is, you go on their website and they've got a statement front and center, they're staunchly opposed. So yeah.
What is the bill? I didn't see this. So what is the bill actually say?
It is
I thought you had a great way of like,
I will talk about it, but
condensing.
I'm gonna put it up here, possibly.
That's not it.
Yeah, where's my?
It's a different one.
No, I know, but I thought. Oh, here it is. Jeez. Right in front of me.
Mhm.
So it's this digital education materials, and these are the co-sponsors. And if you're not aware, Julie Joseph is Boulder County. Brandy is Douglas County, and so without you sitting here reading the screen, basically, what it is for a lot of databases that, and it's written for school libraries, by the way, but I'm going to tell you why it could really impact public libraries, but also, and I'll just be open about my real concern. I mean, I'm in alignment with the Colorado Association of Libraries on here that it's very problematic. It's confusing the way it's written. It makes it sound like it's a good thing. So think of like EBSCO and Gale, all these databases that students use for research. What it's saying is, well, if anything in there has an ad, an advertisement, or an embedded URL, then that vendor has to remove that ad or embedded URL within 3 days or they're in breach of contract. And if they don't do it, then the entire database goes away. So, if you're wondering what do you mean ads or embedded URLs, like ads are ads, and you know, or if you don't know, things like EBSCO and Gale, these are my primary examples. Keep in mind, this could really grow into just any digital material. Okay, but these things are aggregators, right? They're not publishing content; they ingest. And so, in EBSCO, it's the gamut, right? I mean, it's newspapers, for one thing, ads all over the place. Popular magazines, think like Cosmo or People magazine, to scholarly journals, professional, like Journal of the American Medical Association, right? So it's all of it. Every single one of those has ads in it. Even JAMA has ads in it, right? And so...
Books have ads in them.
Right.
Have ads.
Well, that's why I said this is beyond databases. Yeah. So, and they tried to amend it and clarify it to say like targeted ads, and that's even almost making this more confusing to people because if you understand how these databases work, they're not targeting ads. They don't know who's using it. It's impossible to do it. Yeah. And then when you get into the embedded URL thing. So think of the ad, it also probably has a URL, or a URL within the article that points to other research, including like footnotes.
Right.
That's a URL.
Yeah.
And so what they're saying is, well, then it can't be there.
Yeah.
Blanket.
Right.
Blanket.
Yeah.
So you see why this is a real problem. And so that's, I could say a whole lot about this. There's some history behind here in Colorado that this is coming from. But what I want to make sure I explain is, okay, so but this is they're saying this is a school library bill. How does this affect you? Because if through our partnership with SVBSD, where we have students currently, well, it's on a test trial right now, but eventually all students in the school district will be able to use their school ID to access our digital content. It's a whole project that's been going on for years to try and make that work so that we can expand books and research materials that students need. So if we have that, then we're implicated because they're accessing it through us and in that agreement, and therefore we are liable. So that's a real problem there. So if you want, like, it's very basic terms, and these are my words. It's blatantly a censorship bill. They want to yank this stuff because it doesn't fit into someone's realm, and it's under the gamut of parental rights, as if that's a new concept.
Yeah.
Parents have always had rights, as far as I know.
Yeah. And
so,
are these two sponsors? what is their rationale?
Yeah,
speak for them, but
I-
you know,
well,
what do you think they're?
I can give you an opinion on that. Brandy Bradley is a Douglas County. Susie, who will be over that? I have no idea, Susie. This is littered with problems. That's one.
That's one. Yeah.
Brandy is a Douglas County representative, and so if you know the political makeup of Colorado, that's probably the most ultra far right county in this entire state.
Totally.
It totally checks out that she's behind this. Junie Joseph in Boulder County, who's a Democrat,
Yeah.
I don't understand, but what I suspect is she really doesn't understand what this is about. And librarians and educators are really trying and writing to their representatives and everybody like, no, you don't understand what this means or what it could mean. But unfortunately, not enough of those voices were heard, but there were a lot of testimony at the public hearing, enough so that it got through committee at the state legislature, which means it'll now go into the House of Representatives for discussion and a vote.
Tomorrow.
It should have never made it out of committee.
Right. Second reading is tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Morning.
Yeah.
The other concern that I mentioned to you, and I don't remember what you said. It sounds bad.
No, it's okay. It was obviously very meaningful.
No, I think what I think happened is it actually prompted you to talk more about what you just brought up about the partnership that we're working on with the school district.
Yeah.
But even without that partnership, if schools, I think this is a sneaky bill. I think it's a censorship bill, I agree, but it's also essentially slashes access. It complicates and makes access difficult. It's unreasonable as written currently without a lot more specificity around what those, are we talking ads for other books or resources? Are we talking ads for Campbell's Soup? Is it everything? It's unreasonable, it's overkill, it's overreach. And I think by just selling it as, well, as a parent, you don't want your child exposed to all of these ads in the same way that you might not want your young child exposed to advertising while they're watching a program on TV. And it's not quite apples to apples.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like saying that, targeted ads, I don't know that I think that, like that, how is that possible?
It's not possible in
It's
this
not possible.
in any of these formats. It's not possible. I mean, at the most,
Right.
This is total speculation. Maybe like in the case of an ebook, and maybe it's a YA book or a teen book. An ebook, and maybe there's an ad in there. It might be targeted towards like that audience, age group in general.
Right.
And you could argue but it's so. And to get back to Susie's question, like who's overseeing, like who gets to decide?
Yes,
But that's the problem
right.
with any of these types of things that are going on at the state or federal level, at that matter. I mean, I haven't seen anything federally, but I'm not going to be surprised if I start seeing stuff.
Yeah. Well,
I just
they got
don't
a
think-
fish fry right now.
Anyway, Susie has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, she just.
I just popped it up. You're good. So I'm looking at the Colorado Capitol Watch and looking at the list of lobbyists. A lot of them are monitoring or requesting amendments, but the the Colorado Association of Libraries is opposing it. It says Cal-Co. I don't know what that means. But Boulder Valley School District and the Union are opposing it. And then a lot of monitoring. Most of them are asking for amendments, but the one supporting party is the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. So, yeah, I think that is telling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a list of 58.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of reading my mind in that I don't see, there's no transparency around who or what is behind this bill.
Yeah.
So Junie and Brandy may be the sponsors, but who are the lobbyists, who are the interests who stand to benefit from this bill passing?
So I can tell you, and to give you a little history here, and I haven't seen this, but there's apparently some kind of video out there that's promoting this, and you don't see the person, but I think this is what somebody was telling me. The voice in there is a voice of somebody that one of my library colleagues recognized instantaneously as being part of a group of people, probably in the late 20-teens, so like 17 or 18, 2017 or 18. It was when I worked down in Maplewood, and there was it started with I think a couple of parents in Cherry Creek School District who were accusing the school district of providing students access to EBSCO, which was delivering pornography. And they got somebody that did pro bono legal for them, and unfortunately, and the bad part of that, I mean, it was all bad, but the school district caved and they canceled their subscription because they just were sick of hearing it. And then they ended up suing the Colorado Library Consortium because, as many libraries, including us, we buy a lot of our products through them. They negotiate contracts on our behalf and we get discounts.
Who does?
Click, the Colorado Library Consortium, and they're one of their big roles. They have two big roles. One is negotiations on agreements of things like databases, and the other is the courier system that moves materials back and forth.
Okay.
So they play a big role. They're sort of a pseudo agency of the state library. That's too complicated to get into, but they're a nonprofit basically, and they got sued by this back then, and nothing came of it. But it was nasty. It was very nasty. So what this colleague was telling me is the voice in that video is exactly one of the people that started that whole problem back then with the whole pornography. And after Cherry Creek schools canceled their subscription, Arapahoe Library District came in and said, well, why don't we provide access through their student IDs? Which I thought was brilliant. So in, again, my opinion, I want to be very clear I'm saying this, that now that it's back in this kind of different format and they're not saying pornography, because everyone calls BS on that. Now they're doing it this way, I suspect, and they're not happy that their kids have access again to EBSCO through the library. So I feel like this is a very manipulating and backdoor way to get something through. And if you start digging too, you will find that there's like Moms for Liberty people involved on the other side of this. So that's between what Susie just said with what she shared and some of the other stuff I've heard. And anyway, it's concerning, this bill, and the fact that it made it through committee is even more concerning. And I don't know, Susie, given that it's written as a school for school libraries, and directly affecting the schools, I don't know how much SVBSD or if anybody who's aware. I mean, I haven't really talked to anybody.
Yeah, when I pulled up that list, I didn't see SVBSD. We do have a lobby day, and I'm worried that this might be too late, but a lobby day on March 13th to actually go over school funding with our legislators. But I think, so looking at how much is it going to cost to oversee this type of legislation? So is this the best bang for our buck? So when they're saying, oh, we're going to throw this into education and school finance, and they're saying, yes, we're putting dollars in, well, that's not the dollars we need. That's not where it needs to go. So, yeah, I'm already like starting an email to Judy. No, to Judy Mobley, because I have her on my text.
And you're right, and another colleague pointed out to me that they suspect that there's a good chance it wouldn't pass because of fiscal reasons. Like the state was already in budgetary problems, so adding to something that's going to have a cost, and there's really it's like this isn't so no, just based off that.
It's not what we need. Yeah.
It's not what we need, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there is a video on YouTube if you want to watch it in your own time. But I saw the subtitles when I was looking it up. I saw the subtitles along the bottom. It was somebody was talking about removing access for children to so-called cannabis research. Yeah. So it's the new norm.
The new house, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, this is like I realize this is a state thing, but it just ties into what's going on. Here we are, just over a month into our new administration, and I'm just afraid this is just the beginning of stuff like this. And the other thing that's not specifically legislation that if you're not up on or you haven't looked at it is the whole Project 2025 thing. It's very disturbing. It's all, I mean, depending on where you come from, but there's certainly aspects that affect libraries and censorship. It's just varied topics. It's just all throughout there. So there's a lot of voices out there, unfortunately. So it's just good to bring this up and talk about it. And
not that we have to
there's really nothing
do anything necessarily. If there was something like they were inviting we missed a window to give testimony to the committee, education committee. But like if there was something like that, I would share that, or you could share that if you're tracking something else. But it's mostly to make sure that we're all aware of what's happening primarily here, but then also, stuff in other states, because we don't want to be surprised if it comes to our door and we need to go and advocate to council or any other comments or questions? We'll move on to the next business item, which is an update on the library's finalized strategic plan, and open it up for thoughts on how the board can be supportive of the new strategic plan.
So the one that you sent, that's finalized. It's not just a draft.
Yeah, I think when it was sent, it might have been called draft.
Okay.
And technically, we were doing some editing, but at the time, Tracy was doing a lot of editing, but it was not really about the content of it. It was cleanup of the document itself. So, if you had a chance to read it over, I can entertain any thoughts about it. I could also share, and maybe this would help too, as far as how that ended up coming to be. I don't remember if that's come up, and particularly with YouTube being new. We had, first of all, this library hasn't had a strategic plan in about 10 years, from what I've learned, which just seems like, how do you know what you're doing?
Just do your day stuff.
And we approached this in a way, kind of what I would call a streamlined or simplified method for coming up with a strategic plan. I think if you had all the resources and time in the world, you would go out there, have community focus groups, and do all and really inform your plan. I think I feel staff here have a good pulse on the community as far as that goes, and we do garner feedback just in our regular day-to-day operations. And the city garners feedback through surveys. So I felt like there's a good deal of work there. So we approached it much more internal. We didn't engage the community on that level anyway. And we did an all-day retreat with one of our assistant city managers. Sandy Sear has a background in doing facilitation for this very type of thing, and came up with kind of a very broad structure of what a plan would look like. Jamie was there representing the board and the community in that sense, so that was another method of having community input in the process. And so that produced an overall structure, and then I worked here with my leadership here on, well, I kind of worked on it independently a little bit and refined it from what it was originally. There was like 7 broad categories, and it was just kind of a little bit big. So I filtered that down and combined some things. Then worked with my team on coming up with the structure that you saw as far as that goes. So out of that we created a new mission statement that, again, that's been the one we have in place for God knows how long. The vision statement and the core values are all new. That was a really good exercise to talk through that with the leadership team. And get staff to create that. And by the way, all staff had input. So after our retreat, we had all these big poster boards, and staff would come through and look at those and add sticky notes, or some people came and talked to me directly. So everyone had a chance to have input in that. By design, the plan, again, if you saw it, it's pretty broad. There's some very general things in there. The way we'll work through that here, I wanted it that way so that it offers flexibility, and it also serves as a public-facing document so people can kind of see overall what you're striving towards. The details we'll get into, so individual departments within the library, so think like the children and teen department, they will come up with, in the first year, of their own individual department goals that align with the plan's broader vision. Like where do they see themselves fitting in and coming up with some goals for the year, and then they'll do that again the next year, and kind of that keeps us fresh and always revisiting the plan and see what goals are there. And of course there's things we're doing that already align with it, right? So that's helpful too. That'll be more of an internal process. As far as that goes, and that's where you get into things like, measurable outcomes and things like that.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
You've got all these outcomes listed.
Yeah, like how
are you going to know? Yeah.
Yep.
And some of them are vaguer than others.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And so, in a department goal setting, they will come up with that. So you see things in there like we expect to see an increase in library book checkouts, circulation. Okay, how much? Well, what I expect is the circulation department to say, you know what, we're going to strive for a 2% increase, and that's a measurable thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where I want to see this internally.
Okay.
Yeah.
I loved, so the first time I went through this whole thing, I really focused. And so I just read the bullet points on what needs to happen. That was the phrase. What needs to happen. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen that phrased that way in a strategic plan before, and I loved it because it just all the other stuff's really important, but if I just pick it up and I'm like, okay, what are we doing? Yeah. That was where I wanted to start.
Sorry, I forgot. This in case you wanted me to go to any kind of section or anything.
Oh.
As we're talking. But yeah, what Jamie's referring to is, so you have these broad statements, by the way, just if you're curious. So after the retreat, one of the areas was programs. That was a huge topic for people. And so they developed these big, broad vision statements, or as what Sandy called it, as provocative statements, we'd say. I'd like to decide that, but anyway. And more or less, these are what was there. I mean, they've been refined a little bit from what was there. And then what I added later and then really refined with my team is the rest. So like the key objective, and as James says, what needs to happen, what we will deliver out of that, and what outcomes we expect to see. And again, this is 5 years, so increased community engagement as an outcome. We may not see what we want to see in the first year, and also, again, getting back to your point, what does that look like?
What does that look like?
How are you measuring that? Well, community engagement, that's data points we'll gather, and that's going to be something, an outcome that everyone has involvement in that we have to figure out how to measure internally so that we do have a measurement for that, and we do have data. I think I saw a structure or similar at another library system that I ran across as I was researching this, and like that resonates with me. I like how it kind of goes from the big to, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to need,
Right.
And then this is what you can expect. And I like the public-facing side of that, so you kind of see what we're working towards. And then, a lot of this probably isn't very surprising, right? Programs is key.
Mm-hmm.
Spaces, so you get into things like our existing space, new spaces, which the whole pickup locker fits in here as something as a department goal. We can say we're meeting this plan already by expanding. Kind of consider that a space.
Yeah.
Literacy was a topic that did not come out of the retreat in this way. When I was looking through all the notes and the boards and every single area, programs, spaces, collection, it all had literacy components. I'm like, that seems important enough to pull that out. And we're already doing so much with it, particularly in children's, but we're growing adult literacy, we're growing digital literacy as we speak. So that was something that kind of got developed later. Collections, that shouldn't surprise anybody that, as a library, that's obviously going to be a primary thing. And then one thing I liked a lot, and I'm a real proponent of this, is the last section, which is on staffing. And it's, if you look at it, it's very internally focused, right? I'm a big believer that if staff feel empowered and they feel like you have their backs, basically the better you take care of your staff, the better they take care of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I didn't come up with this, staff did, and I think it's good that it's in here. Strategic plan, but we're a part of that plan, and so how do we educate ourselves? How do we prioritize things that we need in order to meet all the other stuff above it? So anyway, just a little more context for you.
So I have 2 questions.
Yes.
So, and hearing you explain it, I understand this is really more for what's the plan for what the library looks like. But you do allude in several places to funding.
Correct.
But you're, like the one segment that I saw that was even clear about funding, you talk about maintaining funding.
Right.
And then in the programs, there's, really no mention of the fact that we are really so dependent on this revenue from the Friends.
Correct. Yes.
And so, does that need to be somehow incorporated in this, or is it just a given? Because it seems like almost all of these things are dependent on these other factors that we talked about in budgets and funding.
Correct. Yeah, and we had a lot of discussion when we had things in here, particularly like what needs to happen, or things where it talks about funding, or that maintaining, or seeking, funding. And we did talk about the Friends, and I think as a strategic plan, and the fact that as supportive as the Friends are, and the fact that we shouldn't be relying on them.
Right.
And if I'm thinking strategically, for just core what the library does on a day-to-day basis, shouldn't involve the Friends at that level.
Right. But no, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I don't think the Friends should be what we're relying on,
But correct.
right? And so, is there a need for some kind of statement just to say, you know, to do all of these things, we need to have more control over our destiny, and have control over our destiny, we can't be dependent forever on this kind of fluctuating income that they provide. That, and I guess I'm being influenced too because I've been reading the feasibility studies. You know,
Right.
talking about how
Yeah.
the money, you know, from that we rely on that comes from them kind of comes and goes, and I'm sure that it's a little more. It's probably less fluid than it seemed like in the study, because in the study, like, well, who knows how much money we're going to get, you know, this time or that time.
But not really.
And it just seems to me that somewhere, as part of the plan, needs to be to get a more secure funding space that's not dependent on this outside group to get you where you need to go. And I understand it's not really part of our mission. But it seems like, since you allude to funding in some places, is there a need for more? And it's just me talking in my, you know.
No, I hear you,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
right. Like, I've heard and seen that.
And I'm just, to me, that's like, that's the overarching thing, and it's not in here anywhere.
I wonder if it's because the library doesn't have like total control over that.
Yeah. But I mean, somewhere, I mean, you do talk about, you know, maintaining it, but like the whole deal behind the feasibility study is, you know, unless we continue to grow the budget, you know, we're going to keep getting further and further and further behind. So I just seemed, when I was reading it, you know, especially at the beginning, I was just like, where is part of the strategic planning to make this like a robust, standalone, you know, not fighting with people for funds, not, you know, depending on outside people to help us, is to be recognized as being this like really important thing that should be standing, you know, shoulders above, like we talked about other library systems that are more independent from the rest of the structure. Does that make any kind of sense?
I think so.
Well, it makes sense to me, but I think what I'm feeling from hearing about this and the process and everything is that the library staff, and even the library board has no control over any of that.
Right.
And therefore, you can't really put it into your strategic plan because you can't affect it directly.
Right.
So it really needs to be part of the strategic plan of council or the city manager, or, you know, somebody at that level.
Right.
But so, how does the library or this board kind of have input to that higher level that has to strategically plan for the
Well,
funding for the
and we
library?
reference that. We say to have these programs and to have them be robust, we're going to have to maintain funding for dedicated programs. Well, I guess you're saying that. That if you're maintaining funding for a dedicated programming budget, that means what needs to happen is somebody needs to come up with some money.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and there was some, and just so you know, like early on in some of the original language in some of this, it was much more like the language was much more assertive. It was almost like a mandate for
Right,
funding.
right.
Yeah.
And I think it was like, after talking with staff and in my boss in other cities, it's like, you can't really state it this way.
Yeah.
Because then it's, you know, like you said, I don't really have control. What I need to say is, all we're trying to say is this is where we want to be. And part of that
Right.
is dedicated funding and maintaining it. So there's sort of an assumption here that, or, you know, if we do these things, that it'll garner that from the others who actually make the decisions on our budget.
Yeah.
So like when you say outcomes we expect to see, this is not necessarily saying we expect this because the library has sufficient funding. It's like, it's more that you're saying this is contingent on the fact that we do continue to have sufficient funding.
Correct, yeah, like the outcomes are only happen if everything above is realized.
Right. But I mean, funding was an outcome. It's listed as an outcome.
It is, yeah. We had a
I
discussion
understand.
about things like, is that what needs to happen or is that an outcome? You know, and sometimes it felt more clear than others.
Yeah.
You know, and in some ways that's kind of why you see it twice somewhere. Like in the case of programming, it talks about maintaining a dedicated budget, and then the outcome of that is that we have sufficient funding. You know, so it's like, well, which is which? But
Right.
you know, I don't know. It started to feel like we were splitting hairs.
But that's where the library's strategic plan intersects in my mind with this board, right? Because we are limited in ways that we can help or ways that we can manifest a lot of the stuff in the plan. But the main activities of this board, as an advisory board, advocacy, education, community engagement, those are things that this group has, different constellations of this group have leveraged with council and around ballot measures and so on. So we can be thinking about this and seeing that as an essential missing piece to making that happen, that this plan happen, and what influence might we have as a board on decision makers or on members of the community who may have resources, right? We can't, we're not a fundraising board, but we can make sure that the right information gets to the right people. And or that those people have a platform to communicate.
Yeah. Or those people see what we're trying to do, what the library's trying to do, and then advocate to the council.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I don't know that there's anything to check off tonight, but I do think that any of us, including the board members who are not present tonight, but will hopefully read the minutes, any of us can introduce or request time on a future agenda to have more specific conversations around specific ideas. You might be out in your neighborhood and talking to somebody, or just get an idea for, we can help get the word out in this way, or I wonder if we've talked about communicating with these folks before, that would be a very appropriate thing to bring to this meeting. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? We'll set this aside for now.
Yeah, and I think what we're doing is some editing, polishing now, and then it's going to my communications person to format this in something that can be posted on the website. Much more presentable than what you see. So I'm sure I'll bring it back here to the groups you can see in that format. But I definitely wanted the board to have it now. I think just whether it informs future discussions of and where the board fits in, but also just as members of the board and representatives of your community to, understand it and know where we're coming from as a library to be able to,
Able to articulate the librarian's
on our behalf.
position.
It's a good tool if
Yeah.
you're going to then be advocating, the budget and things like that, to tie back in to say, promoted.
Right.
Not just the fact there's a library, but the fact there's a library with a strategic plan, this is what it is. Right.
Right.
And then do you have to take this to upper levels?
No.
Does it have to be approved or anything?
No.
This is an internal, basically.
Yeah.
It's your document.
It's ours.
Your
Yep.
document, and you just put it on.
John
Yes.
has to approve it.
Yeah. Not just,
Yeah.
still getting.
I mean,
yeah.
At least nothing
All
official.
works.
I mean, what I did do is I sent it to my boss, his boss, another boss, a bunch of city leadership to look it over between the assistant city manager that oversees the entire external services, which is like recreation and culture is one of the many in there. I sent it to Sandy, who does not oversee the library, but she helped us in the retreat, so I thought she might want to know. Plus, she oversees within the city manager's office the Department of Strategic Initiatives. And that'll be some people I talk with, because part of this is really working to get some really good data, like demographic data and things that can really help us know more than we know now, as far as, really you can get some good information on, not at an individual level, but like, well, there's a pocket of town here, like where they all love gardening, but no one has a library card. So what do you do with that information? This pocket of town is, 90% Spanish-speaking only. Which we know exists, but where exactly? Those are just examples. But I think, anyway, my point was I sent this to that person. So you need to look at this so you can start telling me what information I think I need. I think I know what I need, but you're the expert. So yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah. There was some interesting, I was looking at that, what was it, 2022? The feasibility thing, and it's 118 pages. It's fine. But there was some really interesting charts in there of demographics and that were kind of new, but they were a little more.
And were any of the suggestions taken that were in the feasibility? We're not talking about the feasibility.
No,
they're talking about because of the nature of the different kind of parks we have and the consortium, that we didn't have a lot of hard and fast data about who was using what in the collection. Do you remember what?
In the study, you mean?
Yes. They were saying, well, we have different levels of library cards.
Correct.
And so we can't really track who's using the library for what, because we can't tell if it's a person from here or a person from Niwot or Gun Barrel or whatever. So it kind of made it harder to understand exactly what.
Yeah.
But how you could drill down to see, who was using it, what they were doing. And I guess it sounds like we have other mechanisms that we're using.
Possibly. I think we could get a little more tied into that. It's a balance between that and then library privacy laws.
Right.
We don't retain that information, and but at least on a transactional level, I mean, we do have the data as somebody has something checked out. It certainly is tied to a patron and an address. Or at least a zip code, right? And so we could see probably some information like people from the zip code. I'm not sure at what detail level, but I think it could be pretty helpful. Yeah. But at the time that was done, that's true.
Right.
And yes, in the way we lend, or it's just true in the state of Colorado, I mean, anyone can borrow anything from anywhere at the end of the day. And with us, with our neighboring libraries of the Front Range, Louisville, Lafayette, Loveland, us, and Bloomfield and Boulder all share our collections. And then broader than that, we're in the statewide lending system as well. So it's just like things are coming and going everywhere. Now, when you get out of, like if someone from Colorado Springs gets a book from us through Prospector, that's going to be a challenge. But at the same time, I don't know that I care what Colorado Springs people are reading. I just want to know what the long.
But we do have insight.
But we do.
And I guess that just wasn't really clear in the way it was addressed, maybe in the study.
Yeah.
It sounded more like, oh, we don't know who's checking our books and we don't know where they're going, and more care should be. But that could have been just the way it was written. And of course, the other thing that's so interesting is the Boulder Library District wasn't in existence at the time, so I'm sure that changed a lot of things.
or it might.
Well, when they're talking comparison, you know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I see what you mean.
For benchmark.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, for one thing, our budget nearly doubled, so we can't. That's
Oh, you have to be careful about zip codes now, because
I know.
I live on the east side, on 80504, I live in the city of Longmont, but Firestone and all those places are 80504 too.
Yeah, no, it can't be just.
It can't be just.
Yeah. No, what you can do with some of these data systems is like you might have a zip code or an address even, but the zip code then could be matched with checkouts, and then we can see in a map where that's coming from.
Where that's coming from.
Yeah. And so to your point, if they're at Firestone, I'm less concerned.
Yeah.
Even though they're pretty close. But to complicate that further, though, the school district, which is our service area, crosses all kinds of jurisdictions. Yeah, so then it's just like, well,
Wells County.
yeah,
Boulder,
and we cross counties.
Oh, we cross counties,
Yep,
yeah.
yeah.
Very interesting.
Oh,
It's not cut and dry.
3 years I've been here. Still don't understand it.
Anyways, I think this is great.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you.
and I
I appreciate the
And
questions.
it's amazing that there wasn't a document like this, and that you have one now. It's just so incredible to have something to point to
Yeah.
when you're trying to say, well, why, what's your basis or whatever.
Right.
And it's consistent,
Yeah.
and it, all of the different parts track back to each other. And it's like, instead of me just going, it's a lovely, really, it's a lovely document.
It doesn't feel rushed.
And it's not jargon, too jargon.
No, the language is
It's
accessible.
it's very personal.
And it doesn't feel like, oh, we haven't had a strategic plan in years, let's just whip one out. It's thoughtful, and the process was like, it was a healthy process.
Yeah, I feel good about the process, and I was pretty intentional about that. I mean, there's certainly some work I did independently, but nothing I put in here. So didn't keep anything to myself. Everyone had a chance to look at it and then add or delete. And if you don't have the buy-in and people don't understand where you're coming from, then it's only meaningful to me. So.
Well, and I like just even the very first statement that it leads the community, not supporting the community, culture, so that's excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
You will be referencing this, I'm sure, many times to come. The last real agenda item is of reports. We tweaked the structure on the agenda slightly to allow for a little bit more flexibility, because there may be months where there isn't a report from one entity or another. So at this moment, we ask the question, who would like to share a report with the board? As former Friends liaison, I don't have anything to report on behalf of the Friends. I don't know if Katie or Nicole was able to attend a recent Friends board meeting.
Well, our next one is coming up this week.
Yeah.
They weren't there last month.
They weren't there. Okay.
I have to, so I went last week and sorted some books, and I talked to the woman who was sort of acting as the volunteer coordinator, but they really only had one. And the most interesting thing that she told me is they really had an enrollment, and I'm sure you guys already know this, a lot of turnover. And that she says she feels like they have lost quite a bit of their institutional knowledge, and that's something they're really trying to work to rebuild. And so I thought that was relevant information for you to have. So for example, they don't have a volunteer coordinator right now at all, and so it's kind of hit or miss when people come in and I don't. And then they were talking about the process for signing up and what was going on in terms of the book sale, and it just was she was like, well, we're talking about this, but we really didn't have a handle on it. And I was like, but this is so important. Anyways, I just thought that was important information to have, and that maybe this is a particularly good time to have a liaison involved to say, you know, how can we help you? What can you do? Especially, you know, do we have any information if they're losing institutional knowledge? Is any of their information like this? Do we know about it because of our interactions with them? Through the report. Just food for thought.
So what I hear you saying is that that liaison role remains an important
Yes.
connection for this board, if not more so
Yes.
because of the recent attrition.
Correct. And this was all just reported to me by one person. You know, she sounded like somebody who knew what she was talking about, and had some just frustration with the little bit of just a lack of who's doing what right now.
Right. I don't have much insight.
I think there may be more at this next board meeting in March of more of an update from the Friends, because there has been some communication via email leading up to Wednesday's meeting about some of what you're talking about roles and responsibilities. They had a whole sub-meeting about that apparently, with some of their board members to talk about that and where they need help and where they need to recruit, whether it's paid or volunteer basis. So it'll be interesting to see what that conversation looks like. So whether one of our liaisons is there or not, I mean, minimum Tracy and I are there, so we can always share that back. You know, and for what we hear. But yeah.
But on the plus side, like there were, in addition to me, there were like 4 other people that were new that were there just wanting to volunteer and wanting to help. So they were sort of getting more new blood. You know,
from the director standpoint, I don't have anything additional to what I presented. I don't have any other additional reports this morning.
Council member Hidalgo Zarin, you have anything you'd like to share?
No, because it was going to be the council's approving the council contingency funds for the
Oh, you're welcome for stealing that.
funders. Yeah, so it's all good.
I stole your thunder.
I know. I'm trying to find things that pertain to the library.
Right.
So that would have been something very relevant.
Well, yeah. Again, I guess I could have let you have that, but I sincerely appreciate your bringing that forward and allowing me to present to the council. Yeah, it's all good.
No, I feel like that's exactly why we have our council contingency funds for these one-time purchases, and that would allow us to, that low-hanging fruit, and, just something to get the library out there. So I'm very happy to have done that. Glad to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No more reportable items. Comments from this board at the conclusion of our meeting. We have March 17th as the date of our next meeting. Are there conflicts?
It's not a holiday. That would be the only conflict.
Well, it's St. Patrick's Day.
But it's not a city recognized holiday. Sorry, I guess for all you Irish people.
Bring our green beer.
Oh my God.
No, I have to beer it all.
Well, we could all wear them.
So would anyone volunteer to think of an icebreaker between now and you? And if there is nothing else, we will adjourn this meeting at 8:40 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Susie.